to another episode of Throwing It Back with Sean Farrell. I am Sean Farrell. God is great all the time. All the time, God is great. Jesus Christ died and he rose again. Let's come ahead and get it into it. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so I saw all this. So David Robinson said on Basketball Network, it was like a zoo last year. David Robinson on the relief when Dennis Rodman left the Spurs in 1995. Okay, so David Robinson said he was relieved because the Spurs felt that Dennis Rodman was such a distraction from what the team was doing on the court. And actually, he was benched for Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals versus the Rockets because the practice before he had complained of head stuffiness. Okay, he had complained of stuffiness in his head, and the Spurs head coach at the time, Bob Hill, said they would have accepted that as an explanation if only he had called. Right, so Dennis Rodman didn't call; he just skipped practice, was benched for Game 5. And of course, the Rockets won that game in a blowout, 111-90, and went on to defeat the Spurs in Game 6. Okay, and so David Robinson described what the 1994-95 season was. It was like a zoo last year. He told Sports Illustrated. Actually, in October of 1995. Yeah. Okay. So came to the Spurs in 1993 for Sean Elliott and David Wood. Okay, so it was a timeout versus the Lakers that showed Dennis Rodman shoeless, okay, sitting on the floor and seemingly detached despite the high stakes of the moment. So I guess this was the Western Conference semifinals, 1995, okay. Then after they lost to the Houston Rockets in 6 games, he criticized Bob Hill and Greg Popovich, who at that time was the Spurs general manager. Okay. And David Robinson said he was in the middle of it all. So when Rodman was traded to the Bulls shortly before the season began for Will Perdue, Robinson said, now we'll just be able to focus on basketball. Okay. Let's see. Dennis Rodman was seen as unpredictable and seen as a ticking time bomb. Okay. Then in 2020, David Robinson actually softened his stance on Dennis Rodman. Okay. He said Dennis is a complicated guy. He wants to do the right things, but as far as the team goes, he was so destructive to a team perspective. Okay. And Dennis Rodman went on to say this. He said Dennis Rodman had his theory that he got traded to the Bulls. The Spurs traded him to the Bulls so he could destroy the Chicago Bulls, right? But you had Michael Jordan there, who wasn't going to allow that Scottie Pippen wasn't going to allow that. Phil Jackson wasn't going to allow that. Okay. So I think him going to the Bulls was perfect because Phil Jackson wasn't going to allow him to get out of line. Although he did get out of line. Look at me lying. All right. Although he did get out of line on the court. Okay. And if you saw The Last Dance, and if you saw The Last Dance, you saw what he did, all the antics during the 1997-98 season, right? So, oh yeah, I was about to say something else. You know what? Never mind. I lost my train in the thought, so never mind. Okay, so the Memorial Day miracle. Okay, Spurs versus Blazers, 1999. Okay, and I thought that the Spurs, had made their run in the fourth quarter. Okay, because they were down 18 at one point. They came back. Okay, but the Blazers were up 18 in the third quarter. Then, just like that, San Antonio went on a 17-2 run and quickly got back into the game. Okay, so the Spurs made their run at the third quarter when they were down 18. Okay, but I tell you what, the critical moment for the most critical moment for the Trailblazers that had happened in the game. Okay, yes, blowing that 18-point lead in the third quarter. That was huge, right? Okay, but the Blazers were up 83-82. Okay, and Damon Stoudemire was on the free throw line. Okay, he hits 2 free throws. They're up 85-82. Okay, he misses the first one. Okay, he misses the first one. No. That would have put the no. Hold on. Okay. Okay, so I believe the game was shot at 83 because I just watched the game. Okay, I just watched it. I just watched the game. Okay. No. You know what? Never mind. Never mind. Okay. Trailblazers were up by 2, 85-83. Okay. Yeah. So Portland led 84-83. Okay. And Damon Stoudemire was at the foul line. And he misses the first, which was critical, the critical point of the game. He misses the first. Makes the second. Sean Elliott hits the 3, where his heels are not touching the out of bounds line, and he hits the 3. San Antonio wins the game. Okay. So if Damon Stoudemire doesn't break the first free throw, there is no Memorial Day miracle. Okay. There is no Memorial Day miracle. Okay. Speaking of blowing 18-point leads, no. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of blowing 18-point leads, the Bulls played the Heat in the first round of the 1992 NBA playoffs. The Bulls won the first 2 games pretty easily. Okay. And so they blow out Miami games 102. Okay. But game 3 didn't open up as expected. Okay. Somehow, someway, Miami had an 18-point lead in that game. I kid you not. I kid you not. Somehow, someway, Miami had an 18-point lead in that game. Okay. Over the Bulls. Michael Jordan and the Bulls, right? Miami's up by 18, and some people were starting to wonder whether the Bulls could come back from this deficit. And then Michael Jordan did what Michael Jordan did. He walked past the broadcast table and he told one of the broadcasters, "Here we come." And that was that. He scored 56 points. Bulls win 119 and 114. Sweep the Miami Heat. Okay? But yeah, believe it or not, they were down. The Bulls were down 18 points early in that game until Michael Jordan said these 3 words: "Here we come," and the rest is history. Okay, now let's spin it back over to the Portland Trail Blazers. Okay, so the Trail Blazers have a history of self-destructing, right? Phil Jackson says Portland has a tendency to self-destruct. Bill Laimbeer talked about Portland in the 1990 NBA Finals. He said, "We always look for moments where we can rub it in, where we can rub it in someone's face." And he said the Portland Trail Blazers in 1990 were the perfect opponent to rub it in their face, okay? And Bill Laimbeer got into the head of Kevin Duckworth. And he got into the head of pretty much the Portland Trail Blazers, okay? But he definitely got into the head of Kevin Duckworth, okay? And the Blazers lost the series 4 games to 1, okay? Then 1992, they're up 15, okay? In the 4th quarter of Game 6 of the 1992 NBA Finals, right? So, and Michael Jordan was having a bad game. Bulls weren't playing well. So Phil Jackson decides to sit Michael Jordan down for the 4th quarter. So the start of the 4th quarter, the Bulls had Scottie Pippen, Stacey King, Bobby Hansen on the floor. And I believe they had, who else did they have on the floor? Yeah. Dang it. Okay, Scott Williams. Yeah, they also had Scott Williams on the floor. So King, Hansen, Pippen, Scott Williams, and B.J. Armstrong. Yeah. Yeah. So they had 5 on the floor to start the 4th quarter. Then the Bulls went on a huge run. Okay. They come back, win the series in 6 games. Okay. Game 7 of the 2000 Western Conference Finals, kind of similar. The Blazers are up 75 to 60 with about 9-10 minutes left to go. They blow the 15-point lead. They asked Phil Jackson, "Do you think that is similar to the comeback that the Bulls had?" And Phil Jackson said, "Yeah, it's similar. Only thing is, I believed in my players back in 1992. So in other words, I don't think Phil Jackson believed this Lakers team in 2000 could come back." Okay. Shaquille O'Neal even said it himself. Okay. So oh yeah, the Blazers have a tendency of destructing. Okay. You know what? Let me get to that another time. Okay. Yeah. So that's it. That's all for Throw It Back with Sean Farrell. I am out of here. May God bless you all.